Welcome to Sistery History, the podcast where we two sisters discuss a historical event or experience from a sensory perspective. This means we'll focus on sight, sounds, smells, tastes and touch. I'm Big Sister Laura.
And I'm Little Sister Caroline.
In each episode, we'll take a few historical primary sources and have a light-hearted chat about them. Hopefully this will be interesting, perhaps thought-provoking, but mainly we want to keep things fun and accessible.
You would be forgiven for assuming that ancient warfare was quite unlike that of today, especially considering the 2000-ish year gap. But although the weaponry might be very different, and there were definitely fewer tanks back then, there are many similarities to be drawn as well, and a lot of sensory aspects to explore. Laura, I've polished my helmet and I'm ready to go. Who's joining us at the barracks?
Okay, before we get started, I've got some points of business to raise.
Oh,
Yes, 2 points of business to be precise.
okay.
Number one, we've got some exciting news. I know, it's true. It's true. A few days ago, we received a message from a listener. A young chap named Tom has been in touch.
Hello, Tom.
He messaged after our summer holiday episode to let us know that sadly, Maplin's does not exist on the high street anymore.
Wow, what a blow.
I know, but I did a bit of light Googling afterwards to investigate further. And yes, they did go into administration in 2018.
Right.
And all stores permanently ceased trading, but they do have an online presence.
Oh, thank God.
So if you have any electrical needs, they should be able to fulfill them.
Does Tom work for Maplin, or are we not sure?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
Okay.
But he could be getting a small commission. Who knows?
Well, good luck, Tom. Thank you
And
for your
positive
message.
news to start the episode on.
Great news. Well done, Maplin.
And point two, do you recall that last time you asked how many points you'd accumulated in the quiz?
Oh,
Quizzes
yeah.
so
I
far?
wasn't holding out much hope, if I'm honest.
Well, I have done a count
and
I will reveal all.
please don't.
So far, we've done 6 episodes in
Okay.
this season. The first episode, which was a day at the games, you achieved 1 out of 5.
Right.
Episode 2, which was bath time,
Yeah.
you achieved 2 out of 3.
Right. Okay.
Better.
Positive.
Episode 3, come dine with me, you achieved 3 out of 4.
Nice. I
This
was
is
on a
good.
streak there.
Episode 4, a fireside chat, full house, 3.5 out of 3.5.
Wow.
Took a bit of a nosedive at the summer holiday point. So
Oh.
episode 5, you only got 2.5 out of 7.
That fell off a cliff.
It really did. But you pulled up your socks with upstairs, downstairs, episode 6, and got 2 out of 3.
Nice.
So your running total is 14 out of 25.5, which translates into a percentage of 55% success.
Okay. Well, I'm not overly happy with that, so I'll have to try harder.
Well, you've got 2 more episodes to buck your ideas up.
Will do. Will do. Thank you for the update.
Very welcome.
Okay, so now we've got the AOB covered. How about our sources today? Who is joining us?
We have 2 new entries.
Oh, new recruits.
New recruits. We've got Julius Caesar. He might be a familiar name to our listeners. Roman politician and general, eventually dictator, but that didn't end well, as we know. Author of war commentaries, and he was active in the 1st century BCE. And we've also got Vegetius, a Roman writer active in the late Empire, actually. So our latest one so far, 4th century CE.
Okay.
His only known works are a guide to military affairs, which is obviously what we're focusing
Topical.
on today. And his other was on veterinary medicine.
Not so topical.
We've got 2 extracts from Vegetius, one from Caesar, and you are also going to talk about the Vindolanda tablets.
Yes, one of my sources today will be the Vindolanda Tablet, so I'll talk about them just before.
Yeah, so that's not a written source, but you'll give us the lowdown.
Correct. So, Laura, are you going to start the drill?
I certainly will. I'm going to kick off with Julius Caesar. This is Book 1, Chapter 25 of his Gallic Wars. Caesar's soldiers, hurling their javelins from the higher ground, easily broke the enemy's phalanx. Then they charged on them with drawn swords. It was a great hindrance to the enemy that several of their bucklers had been pierced through and pinned fast together with the Roman javelins. The iron point of the javelin had bent itself, and they could neither pluck it out nor, with their left hand entangled, fight with sufficient ease, so that many, after having long tossed their arm about, chose rather to throw away their buckler and fight unprotected.
So I have a few questions.
Okay.
What's a buckler?
Great question, Caroline. I can assist you with that. A buckler is a shield,
Okay.
roughly dustbin lid size. It's a round shield So imagine something that's bigger than a dinner plate and smaller than a dustbin lid. And I think there we will have the perfect buckler image.
Right.
Does that
Maybe like a
assist?
serving platter.
A large one.
A large serving platter. Okay, got it.
Quite evenly round and often had a metal nobule in the middle. I couldn't think of a word other than nobule.
I think it's called a boss.
Yeah, that's better.
My second question is, what we're describing here is the soldiers being under attack.
Yes.
And they're being pierced through their bucklers.
Yes.
And they are pinned to the ground with them? What's occurring?
So from the reading, Caesar's soldiers are on the offensive here. They're throwing the javelins that are piercing the Gauls' bucklers.
The Gauls, yeah.
By the way, I want to focus on touch here. And from what I can understand, the javelins are piercing through the buckler and attaching themselves to the shield.
Right.
And then the end of the javelin point is kind of bending in, so they become lodged in the shield. So the soldiers are holding their shields, massive great javelin poking out of it that they can't easily dislodge.
Oh, I see.
Flailing their arms about.
Trying to throw away this javelin.
Trying to get the javelin, because obviously these javelins are big, they're heavy. You're already dressed in armour and carrying weapons. You don't want to be carrying someone else's weapon stuck into your shield. There is a line in that extract about them tossing their arms about, trying to free the javelins and remove them. But they've obviously got their own weapon in one hand. They've got the buckler in the other hand. They haven't got a third hand to try and extract the javelin.
Yes, you're not going to put your sword down and just kind of go,
excuse me, could we just pause?
Yeah, time out.
Although the image is interesting in itself, what I wanted to focus on was the touch element and just how much stuff they're holding and the closeness of everything. So it's not like warfare today where there's a lot of things happening more at a distance.
Of course.
There's a javelin right next to them, stuck in their shield. They physically can't get it out. It's so close to them. We hear at the end of that extract that some of them are just throwing their shields on the floor. So they'd rather be unprotected, but not have that massive javelin.
And weighed down.
Javelin. Yeah, and they'd rather just fight with their weapon and hope for the best. I would imagine they're quite long, made of wood.
With an iron tip.
With an iron tip.
So it would topple you over, effectively.
It's going to throw you completely off balance, isn't it? And imagine how much weight you're already carrying. You've got a helmet, you've got armour, you've got your buckler, which is either dinner plate sized or dustbin lid or somewhere in the middle.
You've grabbed your dinner plate.
Yeah. And then you've got your own weapon, which could be a sword, could be another javelin, who knows?
An axe.
And I think the other thing just to focus on is it really brings home how close and intense ancient warfare was. You're right up close to people. It's probably very confusing. Are you attacking the right people?
Of course, yeah.
Goes on for hours at a time. And how uncomfortable that must be. Claustrophobic, I'm imagining.
And a lot of people touching you.
A lot of people touching you, which is not ideal in any situation. But if they're also trying to kill you, it's less ideal. And there's the understatement of the episode. Who would you like to kick off with?
I am going to introduce our second new recruit to the barracks, which is Vegetius.
Lovely.
He, as you mentioned, was writing in the late Empire, about 300 CE.
Yes.
He has written a book about military affairs, and this is extract 1.5. I know the height of recruits has always been required to conform to a standard measurement, so that only men who stand 6 feet or at least 5 foot 10 inches have been accepted for service in the cavalry or in the first cohorts of the legions. But in those days, the population was larger and more men entered the armed forces, because the civil service was not then drawing away most of our eligible young men. And therefore, if the need is pressing, it is fine to take account not so much of a man's stature as of his physical strength.
Okay. 6 foot or 5 foot 10. That made me laugh. There's a bit of a difference.
There is a difference. But actually, we have to remember here that the Roman foot was 1/3 of an inch shorter than the modern foot.
Say that again. I'm trying to picture it in my head and I've already lost it.
The Roman foot was 1/3 of an inch shorter than the modern footage system.
Okay.
So when he says 6 foot, he actually means 5 foot 8.
Okay, so he doesn't mean 6 foot or 5 foot 10.
No, he actually does as well. Yeah, it was for different positions in the army. You had there was different height requirements. God. So actually, when he says 6 foot, he means 5 foot 10, and when he says 5 foot 10, he actually means 5 foot 8.
Okay, right, noted.
Okay. It's something that I had never really thought about. I wonder if there's a height requirement for the army nowadays. There
No
used to be a
idea.
ridiculous rule that you couldn't be flat-footed or something,
Did
wasn't
there?
there?
There's certainly requirements around your hearing and things of that nature, aren't there? Your physical impairments that might
Hinder
hinder your
yeah.
ability or your safety on the battleground.
I had never really thought about these legions and legions lined up in their formations, and they all had to be the same height, which I quite like the image of.
I do like the image of it. I didn't know, and I can't validate it, but I would guess that it probably plays into the fierce, mighty image of the Roman army. That sort of uniformity, all of these big, strong, powerful
Like
chaps,
a unit.
like
almost.
a unit.
Yeah,
It
everyone...
probably really helps the image, doesn't it, that they want to portray of the all conquering, all capable, all ordered and organized Roman army. That's a powerhouse of just efficiency and structure.
Yeah, everyone the same height. It's a bit like Star Wars Clone Wars, when you've got all the rows and rows of the clones.
Yeah.
All of the clones, all the same height, all looking exactly the same. Kind of this impenetrable force.
Yeah, it probably just looks tougher, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than if you've got some really tall person, some short one, someone hasn't got the right shoes or hat on, and then it loses an edge, doesn't it?
It really does. There's something about uniformity that's a little bit intimidating.
Yes, intimidating, that's the correct word.
Nero formed a new legion called the Legio I Italica, or Prima Italica, the first Italian legion. And they were formed of they had a height requirement. So he said that they all had to be 6 foot. This particular legion, yes.
I.e.
at least
5'10".
I.e. 5'10".
Yes, in our money.
What is important, I think, is to remember that the Romans, although they were all the same height and it was very intimidating, when they came over to Britain, they encountered the Celts. Now, the Celts were larger than their Italian counterparts. And quite a lot of the literature said that they were quite tall, quite intimidating, because they were taller.
Okay, yeah.
So they were all about 6 foot.
Yeah.
But is that our 6 foot, or is that 6 foot?
I don't know. I
Roman?
really do think that someone at some point should have just picked a foot and stuck with it. You know, why do people need to mess with the system?
And then write about it. What Vegetius is mentioning here, though, is that back in the day, they had more people to choose from, so that there could be this height requirement. And he's saying that in his day, they kind of lowered it. People could be a little bit shorter.
Right. The reason they're struggling for recruits.
They were struggling for recruits.
Right.
They had to drop their standards.
They did, yeah.
That's a little bit of a pun. You may laugh.
Oh, yeah. Got there in the end. Linked to that, I read quite a lot of stuff, and actually some from Vegetius as well, just about how tough they were, how much physical training they all went through. So not only were they physically intimidating in terms of height, they also must have been physically intimidating because of their body condition. Lots of strength training that they did. They apparently would regularly walk for 20 miles a day as part of their training in their armour.
How many steps is that?
Well, it's 5 to 6 hours walking.
Wow.
Which
Okay.
is quite a lot of steps. You're over your NHS recommended 10,000.
Easily.
Yeah. They would also, I don't know if this is true, but Vegetius says that they would vault in full armour. So they would set up like a pommel horse sort of thing, and they would vault over it in their armour and not in their armour, just so that whenever they would have to get on and off horses quickly on the battlefield, they could do it easily, whether or not they were in full armour. Well,
I believe that is true. I've seen Hadrian comment on people's vaulting skills.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. I wonder if the horses were shorter.
Perhaps. But I kind of like that idea. So you've got an army camp, and then you've got gymnastics area out the back where everyone's lining up in their full armour and the hats and taking turns to vault over a bench.
Someone's doing the rings.
Yeah, yeah. Someone's on the parallel bars. Someone's doing a floor routine with a ribbon and a ball. In all seriousness, the success of the Roman army was widely thought to be their level of fitness, their level of preparedness, and their level of organisation. And I think we get that vibe from your extract.
I agree.
Can I do my Vegetius extract now, please?
Of course you can.
Thank you. Of course, it's from Military Affairs and not the Veterinary Guide.
That's a shame.
Yeah. This is from Book 2, Legionary Music. The music of the Legion consists of trumpets, cornets, and buccinae. The trumpet sounds the charge and the retreat. The cornets regulate the motions of the colours. The trumpets serve when the soldiers are ordered out to any work without the colours. In time of action, the trumpets and cornets sound together. The classicum, a particular sound of the buccina, is used by the commander-in-chief in the presence of the general or at the execution of a soldier to show it is done by his authority. Guards and outposts are always mounted and relieved by the sound of the trumpet, which also directs the motions of the soldiers on working parties and field days. The cornet sound whenever the colours are to be planted. These rules must be observed in all exercises and reviews so that the soldiers are ready to obey them in action without hesitation. I don't know about you, but I'm confused. I've read it many times.
There's a lot of trumpets.
And cornets and buccinae.
Quick question. I know what a trumpet is.
Mhm.
I know what a cornet is. What's a buccinae?
It's a brass instrument curled, like a curled thin horn.
Like a French horn?
Thinner. I want to say thinner. I'll put a photo on our Instagram page
Perfect.
and with the show notes so that people can see what a buccinae is.
There's a lot of noises then.
A lot of noises. Can you imagine if you'd had a bit too much of the old army wine the night before? You've got trumpets to the left, cornets to the right, buccanas in your face. Sounds agonisingly loud.
But I suppose necessary in the heat of battle.
Well, it has to be loud, doesn't it? Because a huge amount of people have to receive these instructions. Basically, it's directing the army. It's giving them instructions. So it has to be clear. It has to be loud. I mean, it doesn't sound particularly clear from what I read out to you, I don't think. But all of these soldiers will be well drilled in all of this.
They'll know what each of these noises means. They will know the distinction between a cornet and a trumpet and a buccinae.
Yes, because in the extract, it mentioned the term classicum, which is a particular sound of the buccina. So for even just one instrument, it can produce different sounds, which can mean different things.
So you need your hearing when you're in the army. This is how you take your orders.
Yes.
It's ever so reminiscent of the Sound of Music when the captain calls all of his children with their own special call.
Oh, yes.
On the whistle.
Yeah.
Reminds me of that.
That is so true. I didn't think of that, but now that you've mentioned it, you are correct. I can't imagine in my head how distinct these three instruments will be. I'm not well versed enough in my brass instrument trivia to be able to say, are they very distinct sounds? I'm not sure. They're all brass instruments, aren't they? So that makes sense because they've got the volume.
They would pierce through
that you need.
The rabble, wouldn't they?
But there'll be people in the army whose job is to man these instruments and make sure that they are producing distinct, clear sounds and instructions.
If I were a Gaul, then I'd be focusing on taking down the trumpet players.
That's a great tactic.
I wonder if anyone ever thought of that.
Caroline, you would do well in Caesar's army. I did wonder, should they try and introduce other types of instrument? Would a drum, drums are quite common war instruments, aren't they? In some...
I feel like that's more for keeping time rather than giving direction.
Probably. A harp wouldn't work. Nothing delicate. Yeah, I think you can understand why they've gone with the brass. Makes sense. I'm excited about your second source, because it's a visual one. Can you tell us about the Vindolanda tablets, please?
Now, the Vindolanda tablets were found in a very waterlogged rubbish heap, effectively, near the commander's house at the fort of Vindolanda. Vindolanda is in northern England.
Is it around the Hadrian's Wall sort of periphery?
Yes.
Or... Yeah.
Yes. So they found 400 tablets-ish.
400? I should have known that.
Why?
I feel like I should have done.
Okay.
I sounded too shocked at the number. Sorry,
something clearly everyone should know is that they found 400 tablets made of thin slivers of wood, kind of the size of a postcard in modern terms.
Okay. I've learned a lot already because I didn't realise there were that many and I thought they were bigger.
Oh, right. Okay. So the idea is you write on them in ink, then you fold them in half, and on one side you write the address, so who it's going to. They mostly date from 97 to 103 CE, when the fort was actually occupied by German and Spanish recruits.
Mm-hmm. So are they postcards?
Effectively, yes. They're used to write small little notes that you might just carry around for quick errands, a quick note to a friend, that kind of thing.
I'm with you.
I'm going to be discussing writing tablet 302, which is effectively a shopping list addressed to the slave of Julius Veracundus, who was a commanding officer. Do you want to know what he wanted from the market?
I really do.
He wanted 2 modii of bruised beans, 20 chickens, 100 apples, if you can find nice looking ones, 100 or 200 eggs, if they are on sale there at a fair price, mulsum, 8 sextarii of fish sauce, and a modius of olives. So a modius is about 8 litres-ish, a measurement for dry goods in the Roman world. So that's why he wanted 8 litres of olives, and he wanted 2 lots of 8 litres of, that's 16, of beans. He also mentioned here Mulsum, which is a honey flavoured wine.
Yep.
And
apples,
if they're looking good.
Yes, I like the brackets. Only if they've got the good ones.
Only if they've got the good ones. I don't want the rubbish
Don't
ones.
give me the rubbish ones.
And then he also wanted some fish sauce.
Mm-hmm.
The fish sauce is kind of the thing I wanted to focus on here, because I'm clearly discussing taste.
Yes.
Taste in the ancient army. These men posted in Vindolanda, as we've said, they were mainly German or Spanish. And it seemed that these guys were hankering after some home delights. They ate very well, by all accounts. There are several writing tablets that they found talking about food, asking for beer, oysters. The local butcher was asked for a ridiculous amount of bacon. They ate venison and roe deer, and there were wheat supplies for everyone. But this fish sauce, as some of our listeners might know, quite often under the name of garum or liquamen or alex or muria, it's effectively fish guts, which is fermented with salt.
If you could make fish guts worse, fermenting them would do it.
It's a delicacy.
Is it?
Yeah. So it's this condiment that the Romans absolutely went crazy for, akin to our modern ketchup. You know, it's just in everybody's cupboard, on most tables. And the Romans added it to a lot of food. So in this instance, they found amphora with garum or liquamen in. They found them in Vindolanda in northern England, like we said. They found them in Caerleon in Wales, and Bar Hill in Scotland, and Masada in Israel. So these amphora containing this fishy condiment went all over the Roman Empire, following these army barracks around, because these guys had a taste for it. They wanted to put this on their food to make it taste like home, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
But it also had the other benefit. It was quite high in protein. You would want something that's high in protein to feed your troops, to keep them healthy, and a lot of nutrients. And then also, if you were on army rations and it was a bit bland, it could spice it up. To that end, actually, another guy at Vindolanda, a certain Gambax, spent 2 days' wage on some pepper. I mean, he was clearly...
He needed a little bit of taste. He needed some spice in his life, didn't he?
He needed to spice his life up in northern England.
2 days' wages on pepper.
And what you could do was kind of buy certain things through the army. I guess at a kind of discounted price. And then they would knock it off your wage.
Okay.
I don't think it would be 2 days army wage, but a 2 days kind of labour wage.
And he's not going to be sharing that then, is he?
I doubt
that much money. Keep that to yourself. It's interesting you talked about the diet there. I came across talk of a drink called Posca. It's a really common drink of soldiers. I'll put a link to the website I found that talks about it in the show notes. It's a cheap wine with vinegar and also water and herbs. So it's kind of, it sounds awful, doesn't it? Not quite as bad as the fermented fish guts. But
sounds horrible.
It doesn't sound great. But the benefits of it warded off scurvy.
And people.
Very high in vitamin C. So good for the army. And if they were limited on vegetables and fruit for any reason, if they were in a siege or something like that. So this is going to last for a long time. Cheap wine and vinegar. It's not going to go off, is it? It's pretty rancid already. High in calories, high in vitamin C, really good for boosting your army's immunity and general health.
And the added benefit, nobody wants to come and attack you because you stink.
You stink of vinegar.
And fish guts.
But you look hot because you're doing a great workout and you're the perfect height.
At the end of any long day vaulting over miniature horses.
In full armour.
Of course. I always like to settle down with a quiz.
Okay, how do you think you're going to do this week?
I think I'm going to get 100%.
Okay. There are 9 points up for grabs.
Wow.
From 4 questions.
Okay.
Question 1. And this is an easy one.
I think
to kind of set you up too much. Which Roman general frequently features in lists of the top 10 generals of all time?
Julius Caesar.
Correct.
Gaius Julius Caesar.
Even more correct.
To give him his full name.
Question 2. I'm going to name 3 core elements of the Roman army, and I'd like you to order them in terms of size from smallest to largest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're going to get a point for each one that you get in the correct order. And for another point, I would like you to briefly explain how those elements relate to each other within the army structure.
Wow.
I think it will all become
Is this
clear.
an essay question?
No, you can totally handle this. Your 3 elements are cohort, legion, century.
I think it's cohort.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second biggest, I think, is a century. And then I think a legion is the biggest.
No.
Oh, no.
No, the century is the smallest.
And then a cohort.
Then it's the cohort. Then it's the legion.
Oh, okay. So I only got 1 right.
You got 1 out of 4.
And I have to give a small example of how they fit into each other.
Well, I kind of just told you that.
Yeah,
so I'm going to
did,
revise that point structure. So that's just 3 points available. We'll ignore the 4th. Question 3. Please order the following in terms of rank, lowest to highest. Camp prefect, centurion, military tribune. You get 1 point for each that you get in the right place. Do you want me to say them again?
Yeah.
Camp prefect, centurion, military tribune.
Okay, so centurion, camp prefect, military tribune.
You got the top 2 the wrong way
Oh,
round. Question 4. This is a multiple choice. What was a pugio? And that is spelt P-U-G-I-O. Or should it be pugio?
I'd say pugio.
Pugio. Okay, what was a pugio? A type of dagger. B, a small round shield. C, a fight.
Oh, a dagger.
Correct.
Oh, thank God.
Okay. You achieved 4 points out of 8.
Okay, not
That's
100%.
Not the 100% you were looking for, but not terrible.
I feel like Gaius would be so upset with me.
I don't think Julius Caesar is going to be recruiting you anytime soon. No offense. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please do take a moment to like, rate, or subscribe wherever you downloaded this podcast. You can follow Sistery History on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or why not email us with an episode request at sisteryhistory@gmail.com. Join us next time when we'll be continuing our sensory exploration into the lives of the ancient Romans. It's going to be the season finale, festivals.
Bye.
Bye.